Welcome to Part 2, Troubleshooting the Touchscreen. On the first screen, push Next. This will bring you to the low range flow meter. To find out what range you are currently on, just look at the top of the screen. It will indicate in the units you have selected what range you're on. If the default units are not the ones used at your site, you can select the correct one from the drop-down menu. The machine will automatically store the units for the remaining of your testing. When troubleshooting or testing out in the field, a steady, clean source of air is not always available. This is why we give you the option to switch between nitrogen and air. You can also switch between the units for measuring pressure. One of the first steps for troubleshooting and testing should always be to zero out your flow meters and pressure gauge. Some sites have different procedures on how to properly zero a meter out in the field. This is why the zero is protected behind a secondary screen just in case it ever gets pressed by mistake. When the operator switches to the next ranges, he will notice that pretty much all the features remain the same, with the exception of this flashing warning advising the operator that he is flowing below the acceptable range of this meter. The digital filter settings allow the user to dampen out periods of random fluctuations in the flow rate readings that tend to obscure the true values. In the filter section of the configuration menu, the user may select a filter value anywhere between 0 and 10. The higher the value, the more dampening. While the filter does not affect the average value of the leak rates displayed, it does affect the indicated fluctuations of leak rates with respect to time. A value of constant between 2 and 9 is recommended. The higher value should be used when there is a lot of bouncing numbers, and the lower values when a quick response time is needed. Typically, the constant can be set at 7 or 8, and always at that value with no adjustment ever needed. The flow rate reading font on the touchscreen is color-coded to indicate stability. The stability is defined to be the rate of change of flow rate per unit time. Green indicates the most stable flow rate and red indicates the least. The stability section of the config menu shows all the colors offered and allows the user to specify the rate of change of flow that corresponds to each color. Alternatively, the colored font can be turned off and the font will simply be black. The goal of this design was to allow the user to see the flow rate changing from the initial red font through the color spectrum, eventually settling on a steady green value, which would then allow the user to confidently record the flow rate. If later challenged as to what the stability criteria was, or how he determined that the flow rate was stable before recording, the leak rate tester may refer to the definition assigned to the green font in the stability screen in units of standard cubic centimeters per minute. This feature was intended to resolve a gap in the ANSI 56.8 standard that simply instructs the user to record the leak rate only after it is stable, but provides no specific criteria or other means to determine stability. In the display window, the user will be able to change the backlight or brightness of the screen. He can also change the time and date. Any changes to these two settings can always be restored by pressing the Restore to Default Settings. Also on this screen, the number of displayed significant figures may be chosen for each of the 3 range meters for any choice of units. The next window is the flow meter information. Here you will be greeted with the diagnostic parameters for multiple variables within the flow meter, including the internal serial number for each individual flow meter. The nozzle check feature enables the user to conduct a pre or post-test spot check on each individual flow meter. It is not intended to replace a formal calibration. In order for the check nozzle function to work, you will need a set of 3 flow check nozzles, one for each individual flow rate. All flow check nozzles are custom drilled and need to be ordered separately. The units of measurement can be changed at any time. However, the expected flow rate and error limits are password protected to prevent tampering in the field. Newer generation leak rate monitors enable the user to record leak rate test data on a USB flash drive. Under the Recording Config screen, date and time formats, recording interval, and file names can be configured. A USB flash drive must be connected to enable the recording function. When no USB is connected, a message will read USB not connected. When no USB is connected, the machine will still be fully functional except for the data recording. Once a USB flash drive is connected, single data and record data buttons are available for recording single data points and continuous data sets, respectively. The single data button collects a single data point from the newest available stream data. The record data button will continuously record data with preset time intervals, which can be configured by the user. The Show Data button will display files recorded to the USB flash drive. Here, the user can review the recorded files saved onto the USB flash drive. The information stored in the USB flash drive can be seen and analyzed on any computer. The last stop is the calibration screen, which is password protected and not intended for field troubleshooting. However, I will briefly discuss a couple key features that the calibration lab or M&T lab should find useful during their troubleshooting and calibration process. For starters, you will notice that each machine comes with an individual set of instructions for calibrations, just in case the user manual is not readily available. The calibration process is as simple as adjusting the 25 and 100% register values. You can fine-tune this process by using the up and down arrows. A course option is available to enter a direct value into the register. This concludes the second part for the troubleshooting and repairing of the Graftel leak rate monitor, model number 9623.